What the fuck is up, YouTube? U.S. News. Clap, clap. Another shell loaded. Another segment ready to go. That sound of the underground that you're enjoying, that's Okra with Dirty Hands. Make sure you support the underground artist that I love so much. That's Okra with Dirty Hands. Video by Purple Dirty Sprite. Check out the YouTube channel right here. Like and subscribe. I have a couple stories on Trump, but unlike other hacks in this lefty indie media space, I don't focus on Trump every single fucking day, every fucking minute of my life. Because that gets the clicks, because that gets the views. So yeah, we are going to talk about Trump, but that ain't the whole fucking show. Unlike some. The amount of power that the left gives the right is ridiculous. We let them walk the fuck all over us, man. They got us by their little piggy fingers. They got us by their little piggy fingers. Little puppet masters, little sausage finger puppet masters. Toying with the left. Yeah, we got to think beyond Trump, but he's unfortunately relevant. He's unfortunately relevant. These Republicans believe their bullshit to the core. Some of them are, like Tucker Carlson's, right? Cynical nihilists. A lot of them believe this shit. Salty Republicans seethe over Wisconsin election defeat. Quote, country is in collapse. So if you don't know what's going on, liberals, the first time in 15 years, probably because of the Roe v. Wade situation, have defeated the Republicans in the Wisconsin election. And I think they have a majority now in Wisconsin. Not quite sure of the makeup, state Senate, state Congress, governor, whatever the fuck. I know politics. I know government. I know how government works, but I'm not quite sure if they have what I'm trying to say is I'm not sure if they have a full majority or whatever. But basically, the Republicans have had this lockdown for 15 years, and they just lost control over it. So hey, it's something. It's something. It's not like neoliberals don't know how to win elections sometimes. It's like the only thing they fucking care about, right? The problem is that their priorities are all. We could get into it. Let's just see what this is. This is a report from the Humanist Report. So we got some Mike Figurino. He's a great content creator. With that said, the criticisms that I had earlier of the leftist media do apply to Mick Figurino. I think you're doing a great job, but I want to see more of it. I want to see more activism, Mike Figurino. More activism. Let's see you at a march. Let's see you at a march, man. Tell your audience to hit up a march instead of telling your audience to buy your product, your sponsored product. You can do both. We need a nationwide ban of the Republican Party. Democracy can if we don't need to ban anything. We need to embrace democracy. Just like with free speech, we don't need to ban free speech to get free speech. We need to open up free speech. Why do you think Elon Musk is doing everything he can to Twitter? Because he understands the power of free speech. He understands that it's the pushback on the empire. No, Nazis do not deserve free speech. Nazis do not deserve free speech. They weaponize free speech. We cannot tolerate the intolerant. With that said, we can't just blanket call all these guys fascists either, because they're not all of them. And we're not going to win that argument. We're not going to ban our way to democracy. We're not going to ban our way to free speech.
I wish that in a circumstance like this, I would be able to concede to a worthy opponent. But I do not have a worthy opponent to which I can concede. This was the most deeply deceitful, dishonorable, despicable campaign I have ever seen run for the courts. It was truly beneath contempt. Now, I say this not because we did not prevail. I do not say this because of the rancid slanders that were launched against me, although that was bad enough.
Who wants to bet these quote-unquote rancid slanders are provable things that were said about him? Who wants to bet that everything laid against this guy was 100% backed up by source and fact? Who wants to bet? I'll put $10 on it. Show me the fucking filled with the lies. Show me the liberal left campaign ad against this guy that was just filled with a bunch of vile lies, unprovable, statements by random folks. I mean, show me that. Because I bet you it was some milquetoast mild ass fucking criticism that could easily be pointed right, back to sources and all that could easily be backed up. Who wants to bet?
But that is not my concern. My concern is the damage done to the institution of the courts.
Yes.
Oh, they care so much about precedent.
That salty bitch you just heard from was Republican Daniel Kelly, who's a candidate for Wisconsin State Supreme Court, and yesterday he was defeated by his Democratic opponent, and as a result, him and Republicans really across the country are outraged because this election was enormously consequential, not just for Wisconsin, but for the entirety of the country. As 2020 Stop the Steal founder Ali Alexander put it, his defeat may actually jeopardize the GOP's chances of taking back the...
Hey, Swillix, the bar is so low, I'm willing to give him credit for accepting the Democratic decision, right? He's not denying that he lost, right? He's accepting defeat. The bar is low.
The White House in 2024. Why? Well, it's because if he was in this position of power, he could have potentially rigged the election for Republicans, which is something that he tried to do in 2020. As Wisconsin Watch explains, Wisconsin Supreme Court candidate Daniel Kelly advised Republican Party officials on a plan to have a group of Wisconsin Republicans sign paperwork falsely claiming to be electors in the 2020 presidential election. And so now, since he was...
And what did they learn in January 6th? They learned that we just need to be smarter about it, that we're not going to be punished, that we're not, even though we broke a bunch of laws, even though we're literally traitors, we're not going to be held accountable for it. So we just need to time it right, and we need to be more efficient and more thorough, and it's smooth sailing. That's what they learned from January 6th, right? If we're going to do fake electors, we just have to do it legitimately, or not legitimately. Sorry, no, but they have to make the paperwork look more legitimate instead of whipping it up on Microsoft Word. Yes, they did that.
Defeated, all that goes out the window, and he's not going to be able to help Republicans advance any future potential fake elector schemes, at least in Wisconsin. But it goes deeper than that, because as Common Dreams puts it, quote, Judge Protasewicz's victory is a huge win for protecting Wisconsinites' fundamental freedoms, said Sean Eldridge, founder and president of the progressive advocacy group Stand Up America. Quote, Judge Protasewicz will act as a check on conservative efforts to take away reproductive freedom, disenfranchise voters of color through racial gerrymandering, and overturn election results they don't like. Her victory helps build a firewall for democracy and the freedom to vote ahead of 2024, Eldridge continued. So that right there is why we're seeing so much coping and seething, because Republicans in this...
Sounds like she might be somewhat of an actual lefty. So yeah, that's why they're fucking sweating their nuts off. All right, we don't need to hear to this. Let's see the reaction, then we'll move on.
Now, yesterday, just in general, was a pretty bad day for the right because, as Charlie Kirk puts it, Trump was arraigned, Marxist wins mayoral race in Chicago, and Democrats flip Supreme Court in Wisconsin.
I'm not even a communist, and I would fucking jump for joy if a fucking Marxist won in an American election. I would do a backflip.
Very bad day. No spin, no BS. Country is in collapse. We need God and dutiful action. Look, maybe if you guys stopped acting like literal fucking Nazis, I don't know, maybe voters would embrace you again. But
And this is what I'm talking about. The fucking snark, the maybe if you look, they don't fucking respond to this. They don't fucking, they're shameless. You're not getting them. All you're doing is making your own side chuckle. And I get it, there's value to that. But if that's all you're doing is going, gee, well maybe if you do, if that's all you're doing and you're not backing it up with political action, you're wasting time. It's not, you're not getting us closer to democracy with your sick burns, is what I'm trying to say. Unless those sick burns are backed up with action.
But they can't help themselves.
Want to bet on you doing a backflip? You can fuck off because you're too correct.
They wear their contempt for democracy on their sleeves.
Yes.
And then they have a surprised Pikachu face whenever voters reject their authoritarianism. And Charlie Kirk, like Ali Alexander, admitted that this defeat is indeed going to make it more difficult for a Republican to win the presidency, with the subtext being that they won't be able to rig it in that state.
Yesterday was not a good day. Not only was Trump arraigned, Wisconsin was a blowout.
And this is what I'm talking about. Look at this. TPUSA, start a chapter today. Humanist Report, where's your organization effort? Steve Bannon, 100% behind stuff like this, supports it. Tell his audience, hey, yeah, you got to support TPUSA. You got to support all these other organizations. Right? Money, money, money. Give them money, money, money. But where's this shit on the left, man? Seriously. Where's this shit on the left? Where's the militancy? The militancy. Where's the mission? Where's the goal? Right? We know what's right, and we know we have the people on our back. And yet we're just cool being wallflowers.
Out, and there goes the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and it decreases our chance to be able to win the White House in 2024. It's not impossible. But we tried to warn people. Turning Point Action was on the ground. We were knocking on doors trying to raise money. The RNC, nor
Was the Humanist Report knocking on doors? I hate to shit on Mike Figurino. I love his show. I think he's doing great work. But it's not just him. It's the entire left. Where's the militancy? We're not too cool for this shit. We're not too cool for political activism.
be found. MIA, that's why we tried to do everything we could to get regime change done at the RNC. They wouldn't be bothered. They were too busy doing their things that they do, which is nothing but pay themselves and take care of their DC consultants. And then Chicago.
And like the left criticizes the DNC, so I'll give the left credit on that. They're on the same page there, and it's interesting to see this though, because I mean this is the goal, right? Replace the moderate GOP with extremists.
Chicago, not as if it was going in a hopeful direction, decided to elect an outright Marxist. Total Marxist is going to become mayor of
close.
Chicago. We'll get
Not
to these
even
stories,
close.
but let's get to the.
Not even in the most generous, I don't know a single thing about this woman, and I can say with 100% confidence that not even in the loosest definition of Marxism would that woman be considered a Marxist. I don't need to see a single fucking thing about her to know that.
One that is leading, which is the arraignment of Donald Trump.
Boo-hoo, so sad.
Yeah, so there you go. If you want to see the rest of Mike Figurino's, oh, well, no, this is interesting. Let's see this
Reference in that video, because that was another monumental victory for progressives. The Daily Beast explains, Democrat Brandon Johnson has been elected mayor.
And hey, this is good to see. This is good. There is a progressive vein pushing back. Okay, there is a progressive heart somewhere, and it is beating. Faintly, but it is beating.
Chicago, defeating his opponent Paul Vallas Tuesday night in nail-biting fashion.
But I'm also, neoliberals will often call themselves progressive, right? And we need to be very, very careful about Ro Khanna's running around using the language of progressivism while fully supporting Joe Biden.
The close race was called just after 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time by the Associated Press and others, capping a hotly contested race that largely centered around questions of crime and public safety. The former Cook County commissioner and union organizer was endorsed by the Chicago Teachers Union and United Working Families. He even earned the support of Bernie Sanders, who came to Chicago on Thursday to rally support for Johnson. He ran on policies such as improving mental health treatment and providing Chicago's youth with jobs. He also called for $800 million in new taxes on the city's businesses and most wealthy. Incredible. So allow me to unironically say, let's go, Brandon.
Make it stop. How about make it stop? How about no? How about no anymore? Huh? Yeah, I'm bringing bullying back on the left. I'm the shithead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mike. You're a nice guy. Wants to pull out a let's go, Brandon. Hoo-tee-hee. I get it. I get it. I get it. Some people just want to laugh. What, you think I'm funny? You think I'm what, ha-ha funny? What, like a clown? Is that what you think? Do you believe theory that too far going progressives become regressive? I don't know, but I'd sure as hell like to try. You know, that's one of those good problems, right? What too much progressivism? Oh boy, what a problem. Do the whole bit. Go on. I don't know the whole bit by heart. But yeah, you know what? That's a fun thought experiment that I would like to see played out in real life. Equaldari. What would happen if we go too progressive? You know, let's try it. I don't know. Let's try it. Let's, while we're at it, let's also tax billionaires and see how well that goes. We uncover the corruption, bringing back child labor in America. I'm not joking with y'all. Republicans want to have sex with children legally. I'm not fucking joking. And they want your kids to go back in the fucking coal mines. I'm not playing. I'm not being even the least bit hyperbolic. Watch what these guys, they've given a new name to child labor. It's like youth employment, I think. They've given a whole new, nice little makeover to child fucking labor. I wonder what they're going to give consummating your marriage with your child bride. I wonder what funny little term they're going to give that to that action.
Do you have a quick minute to do
what is it on?
Quick youth employment.
I'm going to pass on that.
That's Iowa State Senator Jason Schultz. He's the sponsor of the most dramatic rollback of child labor protections in the nation, even if he doesn't want to talk about it.
No, I'm going to pass on that.
You know, Equaldari, it's kind of interesting, right? Because we see Republicans talk about banning guns, but only for LGBTQ people. Ironically, almost going full circle, right? Almost going so regressive that they then become, and they then start suggesting progressive legislation. Of course, it's not. It's twisted, but yeah, no, that is kind of interesting that we've already seen that phenomenon where they go so regressive that they actually do something accidentally progressive. Here's another example. All their book bans. They might have legally, accidentally banned the fucking Bible. It's a, whoa, whoops. Not that book. No, that incest is okay. That's okay. All that other stuff, no bad. So that is kind of interesting.
I'm just kind of stepping back on that one. I'm going to not get into any conversation.
I'm
going
not
to stay away from that.
I'm going to stay
although
away
you might
from,
find out later why.
Yeah.
There you go. There's your tease.
Senator Schultz is clearly proud of his work, but as our investigation
I'm
will
gonna
show
send
you,
your
he's
kid
just
back to
one
work.
part of a shadowy national effort funded by big corporations and PACs to roll back child labor laws that have been in place since the 1930s.
I love this guy's
More
shirt.
states are
I want this
considering
shirt.
changes to child labor laws as they try to fill jobs. Maine and Michigan lowered the required age to serve alcohol. New Jersey raised the limit on the number of hours teens can work over the summer. In Minnesota, a new bill would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work construction jobs. In Iowa, proposed law would let 14 and 15-year-olds work certain jobs in meat packing plants.
The Iowa bill takes child labor law rollbacks to the next level. Think kids in ultra-dangerous meatpacking facilities, high-volume Pepsi bottling plants, and working for cheap on the searing hot ovens of fast food chains like McDonald's for 30-plus hours a week. No, for real. Iowa Republicans want to allow kids between the ages of 14 to 17 to work in incredibly dangerous, often deadly workplaces. Places like construction sites where more than 5,000 workers died last year. As it's set up now, there would be virtually
Okay, you got all the board games and the video games, the Persona mask and all that shit, bro. But you need to get a better camera. Why is this shit fuzzy? I feel like this is like 720p.
no restrictions. The job would just have to be part of an education program, something that the company could invent itself. It's true that more than a third of teenagers across the US worked summer jobs in 2021, but serving ice cream
that's what's
isn't
coming
exactly the
next,
same as
Lenny.
working in building demolition. So
Yeah.
why would lawmakers put kids who are just finishing middle school into such dangerous situations? Here's what Rep. Deo, the House sponsor of the bill, says.
Right now, kids can be out till 10 o'clock if they're out for a sport or a school activity. And so why are they not able to work until, say, for example, 9 o'clock?
An actual expert we spoke to firmly disagreed.
It's a bizarre argument to argue that playing team sports is akin to working in a factory or some other dangerous environment. We like kids not to work more than 20 hours a week because that's kind of a cutoff for damage that's done to them educationally.
Okay, so why are lawmakers actually doing this?
The bill was
Defund OSHA.
really spearheaded by the Restaurant
Oh
Association.
yeah, that's what they want to do. Yeah.
We sort of came along. We were asked to be. We were invited to come along.
That's Brad Epperly, a lobbyist who works for big corporate clients like the Iowa Grocery Industry Association. He's outright admitting to us that the Iowa Restaurant Association was the driving force behind this bill. They're an affiliate of the National Restaurant Association, a trade group that represents some of the biggest names in fast food, like Burger King and Taco Bell. They also lobby for big corporations like PepsiCo and Cisco. And from one look at their newsletter from this time last year, you can tell they've been hard at work spreading the gospel about the benefits of young labor. The hands-on internship at the slaughterhouse is their big priority this year, but we can't give them all the credit. This child labor law rollback originated at a meeting of the Iowa Workforce Development Board, which is overseen by Governor Kim Reynolds. Most of its members are corporate CEOs and lobbyists, and they meet up several
And look, and to the cynical nihilists that say things will never change, it'll always be this way, there is a tipping point for this. You can only have so much corruption until something breaks. And let me tell you, when that levee breaks, it ain't the rich fucks who get hit. People who fail to pay attention to this will be harmed by it. And they'll be left holding a bag and they won't understand why.
times a year to come up with new policies. This bill was a product of a meeting in November. The WDB is chaired by Jay Iverson, executive officer of the Association of Iowa Builders, hence the emphasis on kids using bandsaws on work sites. Lobbyists from the Iowa Association of Business and Industry are well represented on the board, which gives member corporations like John Deere and...
Could you imagine you're working in a factory, the fucking boss hires like some 15-year-old or 14-year-old, and he cuts his fucking fingers off?
Google seats at the table. And of course, no race to the bottom would be complete without the Koch-funded Americans for Prosperity and Opportunity Solutions Network.
Gotta love it.
Also lobbying on the bill.
Gotta
Given
love
their obvious enthusiasm, we tried to get some of these lobbyists to talk to us about the many benefits of child labor.
I'll go ahead and do this.
But they were a bit shy to take credit for their work. The next part of the bill was clearly written for the Iowa Restaurant Association, Hotel and Lodging Association, and National Bureau of Independent Businesses, the state leaders in low-wage jobs. It would allow 14-year-olds to work in giant freezing meat lockers and raise their mandatory clock-out time from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Nice.
And then 11 p.m. in the summer.
The research that has been done
Yeah, and let's pay him $10 an hour too, because I mean, fuck it, it's a kid's job.
has found pretty clearly that 20 hours is kind of a cutoff, and when kids work more than that during the school week, their grades start to plummet, and their school completion rate starts to plummet.
Many businesses like retail, restaurants, and fast food joints love to hire kids because they'll take a lower paycheck. If they can stay at work even longer, places like McDonald's, which loves hiring kids, don't even need to worry about hiring adults who can...
Oh, the volume. Okay, the marker sound effect is 3 times louder than his fucking microphone. Who is editing this fucking video? Holy shit. Oh, speak really softly. And then a big loud marker sound effect. Let's just blow their eardrums out.
can fill those jobs, let alone paying them living wages.
Children's brains are not
Damn you, Darkest Descent. Damn you.
fully
Was
developed,
it Darkest Dungeon? That's a cool game.
especially that part of the brain that exercises caution, that tells a person that, oh, this is dangerous, I might get hurt. That part of the brain is just not quite there yet. And it doesn't
Yeah, they're called teenagers. I remember being one. I once threw my entire body into a vending machine and shattered the light just to see it break. Amnesia: The Dark Descent? No, that isn't from Amnesia. This is it's like some roguelike, turn-based, I think, deck building game.
isn't really fully developed until the early or mid-20s.
The bill would
Yes.
also let 16 and 17-year-olds handle alcohol on the job, which effectively puts them in pubs and bars with intoxicated adults. Consider these all big wins for BlackRock, Vanguard, Wellington, JP Morgan, Fidelity. Those Wall Street titans naturally own
Hey, honey, what are you going to the high school? Give me another beer, baby.
big stakes in the multinational food distribution powerhouses Cisco and Performance Food Service, two of the top donors to the Iowa Restaurant Association.
I think there's a difference between voting for a political party and working at a meat packing plant until 9 p.m. I don't know, Equaldari. I don't know. There might be a difference. Maybe not. Maybe those two are the same.
Truly the voice of small business. But there's one company that benefits more over any other.
Hy-Vee, where there's a helpful smile in every aisle.
Hy-Vee is one of the biggest employers in Iowa and one of its most prolific violators of child labor law. Every few years, a new report seems to come out about all the minors unlawfully working for them. Since 2000, Hy-Vee has been fined over $700,000.
Cost of doing business. They probably saved millions of dollars, underpaying children to do their work. But it may be chronic in my case. Yeah, all right.
For more than 30 labor law violations.
It's the cost of doing
including
business.
a big fine last year for safety violations. But as much as they forked over to OSHA, Hy-Vee has been even more generous to Kim Reynolds and Iowa Republicans,
Exactly.
shelling out over
Chump change.
$815,000 over the last decade alone. Reynolds even kicked off her 2018 campaign for governor at a Hy-Vee and appeared on their bespoke talk show.
Hy-Vee is a great example of a phenomenal employer. They're one of our largest employers in the state of Iowa. They're in small communities all across this great state and one of the major employers in these small communities. So very, very grateful to that helpful smile in every aisle.
It's unclear how many kids were working there at the time, but Hy-Vee is just one of many corporations that are now regularly being caught violating child labor law.
It's okay, Spillix. Just tell
For
us
a
what's
bill
on your
pitched
mind,
as a
bud.
cure for so-called worker shortages in Iowa, where the minimum wage is still $7.25, and so many others.
7.25. They hate you. They hate you. They fucking despise you. These people. I don't know if it was here. It was somewhere in the United States. I think I have the story queued up. They didn't. They didn't raise the money for school lunches, but then they raised their own stipend that they get for their own meals. They don't fucking care about you.
States. The reality is damning. You've seen the headlines, including the huge recent expose in the New York Times about the proliferation of child labor. Since the pandemic began, violations have exploded and were up by 37%.
It's just the cost of doing
Packer
business.
Sanitation Services, Hyundai Kia in Alabama, Blackstone owned PSSI, a sanitation company with systemic violations. Instead of cracking down, states are lining up to legalize the practices, 10 over the past 2 years alone. It's much the same story in Arkansas, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Big donations by big corporations are leading to laws that put kids at risk in order to save a few bucks.
Get
The
to work, you little
intention is written in
rugrats.
plain English. The original version of the Iowa bill called for total corporate immunity if a kid got injured at a dangerous workplace.
No, that's so sad because factoring in inflation, that means Americans, over the course of how many decades, 60 decades there. I'm sorry, 6 decades. Wages have only gone up in a very minuscule manner. I mean, look, the numbers are there. All of this is very clearly, it's non-debatable. Productivity has skyrocketed. Wages haven't caught up. Corporate profits are at a record high, and there's a new billionaire every single fucking day, when there used to be like only 2 billionaires on planet Earth. Something's got to change. And if something doesn't change, something will break. Something will snap. It's called tipping points. And, you know, tipping points can be a good thing. Oftentimes, tipping points are a bad thing. You really would prefer change to be more controlled.
Lawmakers were forced to scrub that last part, but employers will still avoid liability if a kid gets into an accident while driving home after working late into the night. Exploit a kid's cheap labor, then send them packing. And no responsibility when there are consequences. It should go without saying, but such a textbook example of corporate greed and corruption shouldn't qualify as educational experience.
Yeah. Hey, and big props to More Perfect Union. They're definitely a lefty organization that is actually doing proper activism. They're doing real journalism, covering real stories, not filling it up with a bunch of jokes and a bunch of fluff. So this is the example. This is a great example of a lefty organization that's actually putting in the work and doing great work at that. So definitely like and subscribe. More Perfect Union. Donate to them if possible. This is how we win. This is how we win right here, is with activism like that. So yeah, we got to talk about the fucking fart in the room, the fucking Cheeto dust in the room. It smells like shit because we're talking about Trump. So I thought this would probably be the best because, you know, during his speech when we were watching it, I was like, these are all falsehoods. These are all, I mean, like 90% of this fucking speech was just hyperbolic nonsense, made up fabrication. So I thought this would probably be the most useful. You know, CNN, of course, you know, mainstream left media here, very quick to got to call out the Republicans because somehow calling them out on their shameless nonsense is going to change something. With that said, I mean, we should still do it. The left needs facts, but we're not going to make change with facts alone. We're not going to make change with fucking zingers alone. Okay, you think your fucking drunk right-wing uncle gives a shit about what is real and what is fake? He's a hammer looking for a nail, and you're just another fucking nail. All right? All the same, hero Bakhmut. Hell yeah. Glory to the Ukrainian democracy. We'll be getting to our Ukrainian news very soon. In a couple hours. But anyway, let's see. Let's just hear some of the biggest of the whoppers. Let's take a look.
I mentioned fact-checking a moment ago, and in the former president's rambling appearance tonight, he repeated a whole slew of lies. And as Daniel Dale is with us tonight with some of a fact check. So, Daniel, what did you hear? What did you?
They all annoy me. Their faces, they annoy. I disdain them. I don't hate. I despise them. Look at them. Look at them. Do some real fucking news. God, if I had 1/50th of the resources they had, the damage I could do to this fucking status quo.
What want to talk about?
Anderson, it was a Donald Trump speech, which means it was a barrage of false claims, many of which I'm comfortable calling lies because they've been debunked repeatedly, and yet he keeps saying them. Things like $85 billion worth of equipment left in Afghanistan when it was actually about $7 billion, or that nobody had a problem with his call with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger until months later. No, people had a problem right away that very week. And Anderson, I found him particularly dishonest when he tried to pivot to the federal investigation into his handling of official documents. Listen to some of the things he said on that subject.
Under the Act, I'm supposed to negotiate with NARA, the National Archives and Records Administration, which as of this date is a radical left troublemaking organization that red flags the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights as dangerous and triggering. Can you imagine? This is what we have to deal with.
What are you talking
Even
about?
though that has absolutely nothing to do with openly taking boxes of documents and mostly clothing and other things to my home, which President Obama has done, the Bushes have done, Jimmy Carter has done, Ronald Reagan has done.
But they give them back if they're asked for them. That's the thing. You were asked for them, and you didn't give them back.
Everybody's done. I was working with NARA very nicely until the raid on my home.
So 3 separate clips there we played. This is a triple whammy of nonsense. None of that is true.
Not even a
on
little
the first
bit.
claim that the Presidential Records Act said that he's supposed to negotiate with NARA over the return of documents, absolutely false. That law is open and shut, clear cut. It says that the moment a president leaves office, the Archivist of the United States takes custody of presidential records. There is nothing in there that envisions a prolonged negotiation. The second claim that Obama, Bush, the Bushes, Reagan, and so on also took documents like he did has been debunked by the National Archives and Records Administration itself. It says that it took custody as required by that law immediately upon those presidents leaving office, and NARA itself was the entity that moved the documents to temporary NARA-managed facilities, so not like their own house club resort near where their presidential libraries would be built. And then the third claim that he was working very nicely with NARA until this August FBI search, that is obvious.
I had perfect conversations. They were the perfect conversations. Then they raided my house. For no reason.
Nonsense. Look, NARA had been trying for more than a year to get back these documents that were rightfully theirs. Trump did not even return all the documents, we know, even after the Department of Justice took over and issued him a subpoena. So very nicely, I guess, is debatable, but in this case, it's just obviously wrong.
He also continued to spread the same election lies that he's talked about before, the claim he said before about
This fucking nerd saying very debatable. Can we stop with the soft fucking kid gloves? Right? Does Ron DeSantis need to fuck your wife before you fucking stand up for yourself?
millions of illegal votes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The millions of votes illegally stuffed into ballot boxes and all caught on government cameras.
Completely debunked.
Obviously, that is not true.
I mean, what more can we say about this? We've been dealing with this for 2 years now. It did not happen. There was a tiny smattering of fraud throughout the country that even many of Trump's own former top officials, former Attorney General Bill Barr, various campaign officials have concluded would not have changed the outcome. We've addressed this dozens, probably hundreds of times.
Thousands.
He keeps saying it. He'll keep saying it in perpetuity. Doesn't make it any more correct.
Yeah, Daniel Dale, a lot more to get to.
So there you go. I mean, just a small example, right? I mean, and it's so easy to debunk. Even CNN over here with their own golly gee, even they're willing with their lily white hands to admit that Trump was actually lying. Oh, the L word, not being dishonest, but lying. Oh, so we were very decent. Everything going to deal with this tyrant. We'll see. We will see. That is debatable. Hero Bakhmut. I've said it before. I think I'll say it again. I think Jon Stewart should run for president. I think he should. I think he's one of the few celebrities with a name that actually can back up. He could back himself up in a debate politically, right? Because his opponent would hit him with, "You have no political experience." I think Jon Stewart could actually handle himself in that debate. I think George Clooney would be a pretty face. I think The Rock would crumble. No pun intended. I think Jon Stewart could actually make a good showing against the bad faith actors that are going to come out immediately if he were ever to announce, right? And this celebrities are really afraid because they're loved and they get the special bubble, but then when you enter politics, when you Al Franken it, you leave your special protective bubble, and a lot of celebrities don't have the thick skin to handle that kind of shit. I think Jon Stewart does, and I think he would actually be he would compete. He'd be a contender. I don't know, hand out some dirty New York hot dogs and get a couple votes. What's wrong, John? What are you chicken? Are you scared? You scared? Come on, you know how to eat a pizza correctly? Yeah, tell us how to vote.
All right, the indictment came down.
Doesn't know all that much, but he's obviously very earnest to learn and be fair. I mean, the bar is low, Zio Duke. I'll take it, man. Look, he's a celebrity. People fucking love him. That's where I'm coming from. Yeah, maybe he doesn't know everything. Yeah, and he's, there's a lot of examples of Jon Stewart kind of whooshing it, right? But I'll take it. I'll fucking take it. I'll take Jon Stewart in a wheelchair at age 95 over Pete Buttigieg, right? Any day.
30. You know what? All right, the indictment came down. It's 30. You know what? I just forgot. I'm not a lawyer. Is any of this normal?
This DA's office prosecutes this crime all the time. This is a mundane business records crime that is not uncommon, and it's not uncommon from this prosecutor.
Oh, that's awesome. That's just a normal indictment charging Donald J. Trump with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Or
I'll take
to translate that into jaded news-ish.
Do you see anything new in there today that you didn't know?
No, in fact, it's kind of expected that there would be less than people would want to read.
People felt it was a little underwhelming. Some found it disappointing. It depressed some people on the left.
Oh, were you disappointed? Were you depressed? Here's why. Because you treated this like the final confrontation with Thanos, and then it actually just played out like what it was, a boring as shit legal procedure at the very beginning of what will be a long, drawn-out, laborious legal process, because as I mentioned earlier, law is boring as shit.
Yep.
But please continue being let down by the expectations you motherfuckers created.
This is one of the most historic cases, arguably the most significant case right now in the American court system. It appears to be built on a pretty shaky foundation.
It's a bubble case. It's not a slam dunk. Commentators across the spectrum are saying, boy, there's really not much in here, raises all kinds of questions about the...
And whose fucking fault is that? Like, it's like I told you, the Democrats, they don't want to nail Trump for crimes committed in office. They don't want a legal precedent set where they themselves could get roped up in this. What they don't realize is that the cat's out of the bag. And they should take this opportunity while they can to hold these criminals accountable. Because the Republicans, moving forward, even though none of these guys went to jail, will play the victim and say, oh, you see, the left is coming after us. The left is using these kangaroo courts to come after their political opponents. And then they will start arresting Democrats. Any Democrats that stand and get in their way to their illegal, like, it'll be legal, but their push for power, oh yeah. Oh, whatever, you took corruption money, whatever. They'll have a completely politicized justice system. Put all their favorite guys in charge. It'll all be zipped up real quick. No problem. That's what the neoliberals don't really realize. They want to keep this status quo, right? Where the GOP and the neoliberals, they play this rope-a-dope and everyone gets, you win some, you lose some, but we keep playing this game. They don't realize that game is over with and that these MAGA, ultra MAGA, dark MAGA freakazoids are interested in setting new precedents where they're just in charge at all times. They don't even understand the value of the status quo in terms of their own political life. They don't care. They're going for it.
Legal theory behind this case, an unimpressive document.
Right, because it's not the trial. You're thinking of the trial part. It's like if you look at a recipe for apple brown Betty and go, butter, apple, cinnamon, I don't know, I'm underwhelmed. This isn't delicious at all. Yeah, because it's fucking paper. It's the recipe. It's not the game, it's the roster. And by the way, only our media, those cloistered, short attention span, own ass spelunking.
Pull it back.
No. Defenders of democracy. Find a president paying hush money to a Playboy model and an adult film star and then cooking the books to help himself win an election. Underwhelming and boring. By the way, does anybody, and this is just an off-topic thing, did anyone think $130,000 to Stormy Daniels seems a little light? Is that, in this economy, in this month? The only thing I'm thinking is, you could probably get that much hush money for banging an alderman. Like, I've seen people get $750,000 for spilling coffee on themselves. Like, that's just a dollar figure, not of this era. That's some
It's inflation, bud.
shit like Taft or Coolidge would have pulled.
Yeah, all right.
Coolidge would have been like, how about $130,000 or perhaps a Model T? But I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
The one person we have not heard from is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Sorry,
now,
very loud.
he
Sorry.
is still in recovery after that fall. But talk about why the silence of Mitch McConnell, fall or no fall, speaks volumes.
I'm going to go with fall.
They
Let
had
me
to
ask
fill
you,
so
coma
much
or
time.
no coma? Why hasn't Mitch McConnell responded, or at least dilated his pupils? Epic fucking media fail.
I would have, funny. I would have preferred he point out, though, that in comparison to his crimes committed in office, the emoluments clause and a slew of others, the hooker shit is underwhelming. I don't think that was the context that the CNN and MSNBC was coming from. Maybe they were. I wasn't watching that 24/7. Unbearable. I covered it for a couple hours and then I fucking took a nap. But the crimes that Trump committed in office pale in comparison to paying off a porn star for a 3-minute hump. Not even close. Not even fucking close. So here you go, what I was talking about. Another one from More Perfect Union. Make sure you like and subscribe on that More Perfect Union. But Republicans in North Dakota have killed a bill to provide free school lunch to kids in low-income families. I believe this is the same group of people that then later raised the stipend for their own meals. But here's what this genius had to say. About why children should go hungry in schools. Why should we feed children? Why is that our job as a village, as a society? Why should we? I mean, we should marry and fuck our kids. We should send our kids to sweatshops, but what? Give them food? What, with our money? I don't know, man.
We talk about personal responsibility as one of the major principles that the Republican Party stands on. Yes, I can understand kids going hungry, but is that really the problem of the school district? Is that the problem of the state of North Dakota?
It's not my problem.
It's really the problem of parents being negligent with their kids if their kids are choosing to eat in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes kids don't even eat. Sometimes. Why are we paying for this?
Which is entirely the problem that could be existing here.
Oh yeah, most of the food is wasted. Most of the school lunch programs, kids don't even eat it.
I don't believe that it is our responsibility to carry on a program in excess of what the federal government already does. Where does it stop?
Yeah, make the madness stop. Make the madness fucking stop. Can someone stop this lunacy? Stop giving these fucking these little tots. What? Well, you need some food, little Billy? Oh, how about you get your ass back to the sweatshop or back to my kitchen, child bride? Oh, you want some food now? If you're bored, here's your palate cleanser. A chocolate factory exploded.
Weather camera in Pennsylvania capturing the moment part of a chocolate factory exploded. Take a look at this. Fox affiliate WTXF capturing exclusive images of the RM Palmer Candy Company going up in flames. The blast killing 2 people and leaving 9 missing. Sad. This happened yesterday afternoon in the town of West Reading. Fire crews are reporting at least 8 people are in the hospital. The extent of their injuries.
Zeoduke, really though? I mean, is that our responsibility? I shouldn't have to pay my tax money to feed kids. I can't think of a single benefit for society. Feeding hungry kids, that can't help anybody.
We still unnoticed.
Oompa Loompas are on strike. This is what you get when you get those undermarket scab Oompa Loompas. You know, they had that union issue at Willy Wonka factory, and well, this is what you get.
This morning, also not known exactly what caused the explosion, but employees in the factory reported a fire minutes before.
So Davey was nice enough to provide a follow-up to this so we can get a little bit more information on what happened. Need operations from time to time. Why not have that done in school too? Well, why don't we just euthanize the kid? That sounds like expensive. It's probably cheaper to just, make a new one. Right? And if you make a new one, then maybe as a Republican, I could marry that child. Right? And it might be a new opportunity for a new bride. Right? So there's a lot of benefits to this way of thinking. You gotta put everything into perspective.
7 people in all were killed, Susan. 10 people injured. 1 remains in a burn center. You can see crews back out here along with excavators still digging through debris, removing debris from the scene, and that's going to make it difficult to find a cause. Of course, the big questions: what caused the blast at the R.M. Palmer Candy Factory, building number 2 on Friday?
Obliterated, atomized. Look, this used to be a building right here.
And also the origin. Where did it start?
Or maybe this was the building and this was open space. Yeah, this is like an alleyway, but this is the entire building right here. Wow.
Video from Airview 8. We shot of the devastation as the crews sifting through the rubble trying to find the cause. That's going to make it all the more difficult. Investigators with labor and industry are also looking at potential malfunctions with the boilers or equipment inside the building that
Augustus Gloop got stuck.
makes chocolate.
He just comes
and it's
shooting
also
out of
used
there.
for storage as well as offices. Now, there was some talk among employees of smelling a gas odor before this happened, but UGI says it received
maybe.
no report of any problem, and the police are asking for your help.
Anybody, if you have a
Ask the fucking company, huh?
picture or video, maybe from a different angle or whatever it may be.
Oh, okay,
Don't
all
ever
right,
think
yeah.
it's no big deal. Get it to us, and then we'll decide if it's not a big deal.
Yeah. The public would be more eager to help if cops didn't shoot you in the back if you run away in fear. I'm just saying.
Now, OSHA is investigating this as well, seeking to talk with employees who were treated and released from the hospital. 3 buildings are condemned. Now, Borough Council is going to meet tonight to extend the emergency declaration, and that will enable it to apply for certain disaster funds, which will certainly be
Willy
needed
Wonka is a
in
really
this
good
recovery
movie.
effort. Officials also tell us well over $100,000 has been raised for the families of the victims. Live in West Reading, Barbara.
Yeah, it would need to be raised because it's not like they're going to get any help from anybody else. They're not a bank. CDC team studying health impacts of East Palestine train derailment got sick during the investigation. But no, guys, it's okay. Will the company be held accountable even after this? Probably not. No, it was perfectly safe to burn off highly toxic, noxious chemicals. It was totally safe to get rid of the evidence immediately by burning it off. We couldn't have done any kind of costly chemical removal. That would have cost billions of dollars. So cheapest, safest thing is just put all that nasty shit right in the air. Who's going to breathe it? A couple poor people? I mean, come on. It's cost of doing business. Cost of doing business.
The CDC says earlier this month, federal workers actually got sick while they were surveying in East Palestine after that derailment.
They showed symptoms similar to what other people have been talking about, fearing chemical exposure.
Chris Hoffman went back to East Palestine today to talk to residents who are still dealing with the aftermath about the report.
Allegedly. And for the people, I mean, did the trail derailment even happen? Last time I checked, that wasn't even like a real train derailment, right? I mean, it's like kind of, oh my God.
Here, this just reinforces their distrust of some of the government officials. They say if those federal workers are getting sick, what's possibly being done to them? The CDC says it was on March 6th, more than a month after the train derailment, when the workers got sick. They were in East Palestine assessing the chemical exposure.
It's been a living nightmare. It has been pure hell.
According to the CDC, 7 people on the 50
Hero Bakhmut. Let me tell you, oh my God, oh my God. Let me tell you, man. I was making the joke that I think there's some train derailment themed supervillain that's touring the fucking globe, man. All of a sudden, this shit's just happening all the time now.
15-person team reported symptoms, including sore throat, headache, coughing, and nausea.
Oh, okay.
These are similar symptoms to what residents complained
liberals.
of in the chemical assessment surveys after the derailment.
It's not getting better. It's not getting better at all.
Sounds like a
Those
liberal
federal
to me.
workers reported their symptoms to safety officers. Later that afternoon,
should get some kids out there to do the cleanup. Bet you they'll do it for $5 an hour and a lollipop. Let's make another one.
the CDC says the
And I can
symptoms
marry it.
resolved. They all resumed their work 24 hours later. They didn't appear to have any long-term issues.
I do not trust anything that officials are telling us.
Yeah, because you're
Now,
a
people
liberal.
living in East Palestine say if these workers got sick in the short time they were exposed, what does that mean for the residents living with this air every day?
Fake
They don't
news.
trust the
That's
state
what
and
it
federal
means.
leaders saying the air is okay.
It means the train company that's responsible for this is actually not responsible for anything. That's what it means. Dummy.
I don't think any, of our government officials would want to be right here in Ground Zero. I mean, I think certainly, that Shaw wouldn't.
4 days, I couldn't quit coughing.
Look at that, dude. Fucking chlorine in the air turned his hair white.
The EPA and Norfolk Southern did not respond for comment today. For the people here, they say they just
No.
want the truth. They're adults, and they say whatever it is, they can handle it. And East
Look, I understand poor people can't just leave, but don't leave. If you can leave, for the love of God, leave. They're lying to you. It's the cost of doing business. Oh, you're going to get all these cancers. You're going to sue them for a bunch of money. They've calculated all the money. They don't care. They're like, yeah, if every single one of these people, sues us, yeah, we'll settle for a couple million and we're still fine. Cost of doing business. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. I would be out of there. I would be out of there, and the only time I would enter is with a fucking full-on hazmat suit, or at the very least some kind of gas mask, while I'm pulling my possessions out of there and putting my house up for sale. But look, a lot of people don't have that option, okay? A lot of people, it's, they're living in a trailer. It's all they got. They got nowhere to go. They got no family. Yeah, where are they going to go? A refugee center in the United States? Yeah, right. If you don't have family outside, and if you don't have the money to get out of there, you're stuck. But if you do have the means to get out of there, please get out of there. Here's a little bit of something that'll make your heart melt. French protesters inside BlackRock HQ in Paris. BlackRock is one of these massive companies that's buying up as much real estate as humanly possible, trying to make the market as untenable as possible, making everybody renters. Here is French protesters in their office, letting them see some ramifications to their actions. Yeah, Zeoduke, but where are you going? You gonna throw your kids in the car and load up your shit in a trailer and then what? Go live by the river? Love to see it. Love to see it. But apparently this is like, they're burning like their paper or something in a trailer park in the next town or whatever. Look, man, I'm from poverty. I get it. Sometimes you're immobilized. Sometimes you got just enough money to put gas in your car to go to work so that you don't get, so that you can pay your rent. I'm sure a lot of those people are in that position in there. But yeah, if you do have the means to leave, you should. God, I wish we were doing this in America. What is this now? I'm looking at this. Open app. What is this? Oh, memes. Willy Wonka's developed a new product, creme brulee. You're goddamn, man. People died. Goddamn, Swillix. People died. Have some fucking heart, man. The people who are in houses don't have that option for sure. I was just thinking that trailer havers were one of the better off. I mean, maybe. You're not exactly in a trailer because you're balling, okay? Not everyone's Julian. Dark sense of humor. Yeah, you do. It's okay. We got to cope somehow. So here's Rep. Ro Khanna. Once again, man, I love his words, his eloquent words. Oh, so eloquent. The words of progressivism. And where is Ro Khanna when we need him? Where is Ro Khanna when the neoliberals are shitting all over progressivism? Oh, well, I think I like Joe Biden. I think he's doing a good job. Oh. but he's got a good tweet here. In 2021, corporations bought 28% of all the homes sold in Texas, 19% of all the homes sold in Georgia, 16% of all the homes sold in Florida. Pass my bill, reigning corporate landlords. He knows his bill is going to go nowhere. He's fundraising off this. He knows it's going to go fucking nowhere, and he knows his colleagues aren't going to support it either. Maybe a couple, if they need a couple extra points. I guarantee you there are Democrats receiving millions of dollars from the corporation, from the very corporations that are doing this. And those very same Democrats who maybe would support this legislation even would say, I have to take that money. I have to take that money to be competitive with the fascistic right wing. I have to be corrupt. That's what they say. I have to take them. You would have me at a disadvantage to them? Like Bernie didn't prove that if you have real progressive policies, you can actually fundraise off people and not corporations. They try to tell you that their only option is to be corrupt towards corporations. I guarantee you there are Democrats taking money from the companies doing this, buying up millions of homes and then making the market extremely expensive and then making you a renter. Oh boy. Oh boy, I got some red meat for you lefties. You guys hungry? You want to see a Russian shill embarrass himself? You want to see what used to be a respected journalist who is now just disappointing figure who used to have an incredible amount of respect from me and people on the left, and he threw all that away for some money and some clout with some billionaires or whatever. He says he hasn't even made any money off it. And if that's true, that's even more pathetic. That Matt Taibbi would throw away all the respect that he had for no material gain, I guess. So you tried to sell out and you failed? Is that what you're telling us, Matt? So anyway, speaking of Mehdi Hasan, who I just shit on, or no, I was just shitting on Ro Khanna. I'm not racist. I trust me. But speaking of, like, you know, lefties that could be doing better. With that said, the Mehdi Hasan show is probably one of the only shows on MSNBC, CNN that actually addresses some actual real progressive issues. I'll take it. The bar is low. You're no democracy now. I'll take it. But yeah, Matt Taibbi joining in with Elon Musk with all the right-wing framing of all these stories. And to top it off, he's one of the Ukrainian defeatists. He thinks Ukraine should give up to the might of the Russian Empire, that Zelensky is a fool for fighting back, that he's sacrificing his people for nothing. And that, of course, he's a U.S. puppet as well, you know, being manipulated by NATO and the West to fight a losing war against Russia. So he's one of those idiots as well now. But yeah, watch him embarrass himself on mainstream MSNBC, bro. This is embarrassing, dude. This is embarrassing, man. The only thing that would have been more embarrassing if it was Tapper Jake doing it.
You talk a lot about...
Ooh, that's loud, baby. That is very loud. MSNBC has high-quality microphones. Try this again.
You talk a lot about the Election Integrity Project in the Twitter files, which Stanford and the University of Washington founded to monitor attacks on our elections. And you say some stuff about them that a lot of your critics say is not true, and that affects your credibility. You said the EIP was founded in response to the government dropping its proposal for a disinformation governance. Well, there you are. We're quoting you on screen. It wasn't. It was formed 2 years earlier. You suggest it was government funded, even though during the 2020 election that you're covering, it wasn't. You say they labeled 22 million tweets as misinformation in the run-up to the 2020 vote. They didn't. They flagged 3,000 election misinformation tweets for labeling, so you were only 21,997,000 off. And you also claim the EIP was... Let me finish the question. You can come back in. You also claim the EIP was partnered with the government Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, CISA, to censor Twitter. But you mix up CISA CISA, a Homeland Security agency, with the Center for Internet Security, the CIS, which is a non-profit. In fact, you added an A to CIS. I think people can see it there in brackets to make that false claim. It's just error after error, Matt, on just this one topic.
An error. But the other ones aren't.
No,
22 million number came from their own report.
Yeah, where did it came from? A report in March. Do you know what the 22 million number is, Matt? Can you tell me? Because we checked. 22 million is the number of tweets about election misinformation that they just mapped. How many tweets were they? The ones they actually flagged to Twitter before the election, 22 million came after the election. It wasn't in the run-up. They flagged 3,000. So you were off by 21,997,000. It's another error.
They've said a lot of things. I stand by my story.
You stand by what story? You stand by 22 million were flagged in the run-up to the election, even though that number came in March 2021, which was after the election.
Fake news. He's pulling the hand wave fake news. Man. Matt, bro, if you seriously didn't make any money doing this, man, I don't know what to tell you, dude.
No, this came in their report after the election.
Which was about some total of tweets that they counted on the election. What they flagged to Twitter was 2,980 tweets, I believe. So that's nowhere near 22 million.
Come
on, what? You got something wrong. You got CISA wrong. Why did you add A? Okay, Matt, why did you add A in square brackets? Do you understand why people worry about?
I actually thought that.
And why didn't you fix it? I just checked the tweet before I came on air. It's been 3 weeks since it was flagged to you. Why not fix it? Do you not have editors at the racket?
I didn't realize that until now.
Okay, and what about the date? You got the date wrong when it was founded. You said it was founded in response to the Disinformation Board. That was last year.
Well, because Stamos is saying in the video that we were sort of created to fill the gaps.
But no, that's not what you say in the tweet. That's not what you say in the tweet.
The SIO was created in 2018.
No. You say, this is what you say, that the EIP was created after the public uproar paused the Disinformation Board. That's wrong. You need to correct that as well, don't you?
After the...
That's what your words. You say, to quote you, after public uproar paused the Orwellian Disinformation Governance Board, Stanford created the EIP. That's wrong.
Well, that's what they say.
You could check. You don't need sources, Matt. You could check the EIP website. It says it was created in 2020.
This is painful.
Well, that's the date that I just said.
And the Disinformation Board was 2022.
It's painful.
Okay. All right. Well, then that is an error.
Man. Look, if you don't know who Matt Taibbi is, maybe you're not from the United States. Like, he was supposed to be the one. He did biting articles on Wall Street, in Rolling Stone. He wrote books on, the rising military industrial complex. And I mean, he was just a rising star in terms of like legitimate left journalism. And it once again, like I've had to do with so many people that I respect, that I used to respect on the left, I've had to accept that for some reason, whatever their motivation is, for some reason, they're now telling these lies that I could see in front. Like, maybe before I wasn't as well versed on the subjects they were talking about to understand that he was obfuscating or lying, or maybe he wasn't. But now his entire body of work is now put into question. What is real? What isn't? What was opportunist? What isn't? Maybe there was a hard shift, and he said, "Fuck this." Being left and being honest and being independent, truly independent, ain't making me no money. Here comes Elon Musk, gonna change my fucking life, and life-changing money. Elon Musk can change your fucking life, dude. You living in some dingy apartment, all of a sudden you're living in a mansion. Elon Musk can make that shit happen for you. Never heard of Mehdi Hassan, but he didn't fuck around. He was finding out. Mehdi Hassan is decent. Like I said, probably one of the better ones at MSNBC, CNN, ABC, all the whole crew. My standards are high though, and he's 1/4 of Amy Goodman's ability, which is a lot more than most mainstream media outlets. I'll just let this one speak for itself. Let this one speak for itself. Florida sheriff goes on a wild rant against gun laws while announcing arrests in shootings that killed 3 teenagers. So he's telling the media about a shooting, and he's using this opportunity to grandstand pro-gun legislation that makes his job less safe. They're insane. I mean, what else can I say? You know? What else can I say? They're too old for him, exactly. Can't marry them. No, they're not kids anymore.
I know each of you in the media here and viewers out there probably heard us in law enforcement or even in community events talk about what is the problem. And I'm going to go ahead and address the first thing.
Mental health, yada, yada, yada. It's not the gun, yada, yada, yada. You think that's what these guys are thinking when armor-piercing bullets are getting fired at them? Oh, it's not the gun. It's just a bad guy. It's okay. You know, he had a right to shoot armor-piercing bullets at me. That's his God-given right. I'd never take that away from him.
That I know it's going to come up. Because there are individuals out there viewing,
Elon
Musk,
Musk.
Some of you media,
Elon Musk,
that want to blame the one thing that has no ability or the capacity to commit the crime itself.
Oh, I know. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Once again, I'm going to repeat it. It is undeniable fact. It is provable on paper. You could fill a whole building with the facts on this. Gun bans work. Gun bans work. Yes, there are some examples. Tibet is a great example of gun bans not working so well. And I don't advocate for banning all guns. I advocate for banning the guns that cause the most damage. Assault weapons. Let's start with assault weapons and see where that goes. Oh, slippery slope, slippery slope, slippery slope. It works. Oh, criminals will always get guns. Criminals will always get guns. Then how come the criminals in other countries that have instituted gun bans reduce the amount of crimes they do with guns? Oh, it's different. It's different context, different country. It's all different. It's all different. We've never tried here. I'm so confident that it doesn't work in here that we're not even going to experiment. We're not even going to try it. That's how confident I am. I have facts and statistics and other things back me up. What do you have to back you up? The Bible. Freedom. I want to marry your kid. Okay.
And that's the gun. These individuals committed the crime.
Yeah.
Sheriff, you mentioned the gun. Do we know how the suspect got a hold of the weapon?
Car burglaries. Yeah. Ain't that right? All the gun laws we got in place didn't prevent it, did it? Neither will any new ones.
He uses this as an opportunity for a political speech.
Because here's the fact. The bad guy's going to get a gun no matter what law you have put in place.
Wrong.
These juveniles shouldn't even possess a handgun. But they did. And I'll go back to you.
So by this logic that, well, gun bans don't work to end all crime, why do we have police? There's still crime. Having a bunch of police doesn't prevent crime from happening. Why even bother with cops? Why bother having laws at all? Right? Laws are imperfect. They don't work 100% of the time. So why bother? Why is that logic, which is insane, and no one would apply that to any real world example, why is that logic okay with guns only? Everything else, you would never apply that kind of logic. You would never apply this kind of, well, it's not going to be perfect, so why try? You would never apply that logic. It's a cynical, anti-intellectual, pithy, cold response to what is clearly a growing problem.
Add your question. A simple burglary, as some people will say, but I don't consider anything simple when it comes to a burglary. The law allows me, I'll plaster their face up on this page, up on my page, up on media. I will hand it out if the law allows me, because parents have the right to know who their kids are hanging out with and preventing this.
What, are they going to shoot him? How, you know? I'm fine with transparency. So here's that, so this is interesting. I did not know this about Stephen Paddock. And this is really just Reddit comments, so could be wrong. But some more information about the motivation of Stephen Paddock. And this is the Las Vegas shooting. If you don't know what the Las Vegas massacre was, just go ahead and type Las Vegas massacre into YouTube. There's some really great videos. I covered it extensively on the News Underground. Go every little detail that we could get. God, I'm just flashing back to some of the dead people in the crowd that I saw. It was actually quite traumatizing. There was an old man who was shot in the head, and white foam was coming out of his mouth. He was lying next to his dead wife. Anyway, it had U.S.'s worst mass shooting incident, and there was a big mystery behind his motivations. He didn't leave behind a manifesto, didn't really leave behind a lot of evidence that would point him one way or another. At least that's what we thought. Apparently, some new evidence is coming out, and he's a right-winger. Hey! He's a right-winger. See if I can find this in the comments. That could be wrong. Like it's all... yeah, where is it? Where is it? People talking about how it's been forgotten. Yeah, okay. So, heavily redacted report. Yeah. But no, one witness told Las Vegas police that Paddock was, quote, kind of fanatical about his anti-government conspiracies, and they believe someone had to, quote, wake up the American public and get them to arm themselves in response to looming threats. Family members and associates of Paddock painted a picture of a man who loathed restrictions on gun ownership and believed that the Second Amendment was under siege. According to our review of their statements to investigators after the shooting and other documents compiled by the authorities. So, yeah, didn't leave a manifesto, but looks like, you know, pro-Second Amendment, thought the Second Amendment was under siege, right-wing motivations. I'm not, you know, I'll need to see more evidence to be 100% sure, but I always suspected that, of course, you know, we all did, but it looks like now that we're getting a little bit more information about Stephen Paddock, finally. It looks like his motivations were aligned with the right wing. Big surprise. Here's one for the old timers. Lenny, and I hopefully OG Lee are still here, but hopefully Lenny especially, who has an interest. We got a great interview, kind of a Democracy Now! double feature here. Sorry, not sorry to Davey if he's watching. But we have a wonderful interview with Ralph Nader, who points out all of the things that the White House is, and the White House's Merrick Garland, who, you know, was picked by Joe Biden, the Justice Department's Merrick Garland, who was picked by Joe Biden, how they are not going after Trump for some of his most egregious crimes. And they never go into the motivations. I'll fill in the blank for you. Like I said before, the neoliberals don't want to set precedents in court where their crimes can get them wrapped up. It's an unspoken agreement between the status quo Republicans and neoliberal Democrats. You know, poke and prod, and we'll do our silly Benghazis and our silly investigations or whatever, but we're not going to send anybody to jail. The gloves are off. The gloves are off, and the Republicans will take this opportunity in 2024 to set a precedent, and the Democrats are just, you know, they're not gonna, you know, they're failing to hold, just as they failed to hold Bush accountable, just as they failed to hold Reagan accountable. They're not going to want to hold Trump accountable, and there's a reason. It's not just incompetence. Ralph later. Democracy later. No, democracy now, goddammit.
As we cover this historic arraignment of former President Donald Trump, we look at what he has not been charged with, well, at least yet. We're joined on the phone by Ralph Nader, longtime consumer advocate, corporate critic, former presidential candidate many times. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Ralph. Your response to what took place yesterday, it was historic. First ever ex or sitting president charged, criminally charged. He's charged with 34 felonies. And he also has been impeached twice. But talk about what he did get charged with and what he didn't.
Fake news.
Well, it was historic in the sense it was massively overdue. Let's start with Donald Trump's notorious statement in 2019, which lays the basis for his lawlessness day after day as president. He said, quote, "With Article 2, I can do whatever I want as president," end quote. Really? But he went on to prove it before 2019 when he made the statement and after. And so the broader frame of reference here is that he turned the White House into a daily crime scene. John Bolton, who was
he was breaking the motherfucking law day one. You know, famously, Jimmy Carter had to sell his peanut farm, right, to be president. Trump was running his businesses. He completely ignored that law, and the Democrats absolutely let him. Thank you, Evan Yeager, for the follow. Very much appreciate it. I will be right back. I have to take a leak so bad. I'm in physical pain right now. Actually, I need to go so bad. I will be literally right back.
Special assistant in his memoir said obstruction of justice in the White House was a way of life. That's a serious crime. In the Mueller report, they outlined 10 major obstructions of justice against law enforcement in a very crude manner. There wasn't any subtlety about it. But what Trump has done openly, brazenly, there's nothing furtive like Nixon about Trump, is that in the White House, he set a historic record for defying over 150 congressional subpoenas. That's criminal contempt. He got away with it. He shoveled around billions of dollars from one program to another, most notoriously from military housing projects to extend the wall on the Mexican border. That is a violation of a criminal law called the Anti-Deficiency Act. He got away with it. He used the White House as a political re-election base, had events there openly right on the White House lawn, and forced the Treasury Department to put his name on millions of checks going out during the pandemic to millions of Americans. That is a crime. It violates the criminal prohibition in the Hatch Act from using the power of the federal government against your
diapers.
electoral
That's a good
opponents.
idea.
He got away with it. It's important to say also that all presidents violate laws. He's just taking it to a new and diverse height. But he's doing it so brazenly that if he gets away with it, he will continue to contribute to the institutionalization of lawlessness by presidents of the United States. Let's face it, both Bush, Obama, and Trump have violated all kinds of laws in extending the empire. Obama, for example, decreed informally that he could pick out anybody in the world and as prosecutor, judge, jury, executioner, and in secret, wiped that person out, and he did it. Of course, Bush was the big war criminal with Cheney invading Iraq. But then Obama took out the regime in Libya without a congressional debate, without a congressional authorization, appropriation of funds, or declaration of war. And that's, to this day, producing chaos and violence, goaded by Secretary of State Clinton, who pushed Obama to do this, and he later admitted it was the biggest mistake of his administration. So we have all kinds of other tax violations, obstruction of voting, campaign finance violations, never mind his assault.
So many. And I want you to remember that Joe Biden had his fucking pick. Of some of the best, aggressive, freedom-loving prosecutors that would have gladly buried Donald Trump for every single fucking crime. And who did he pick? Out of the thousands of choices, hundreds of them, I'm sure, would have nailed Donald Trump to the fucking wall. Who did he pick? He picked the most moderate, centrist, milquetoast, cowardly, weak. You think that was an accident? What do you think? He just threw a fucking dart at the dartboard? Ask yourself.
Battery of women, which he seemed to be proud of. So this event yesterday represents the first turnaround. Why did Democrats wait so long? They had 12 impeachable offenses in 2019. We got them in the congressional record, December 19th. Congressman John Larson put them in. Nancy Pelosi just went with the Ukraine matter. Not exactly a kitchen table issue.
Just to confirm, Ralph Nader, I don't think is a defeatist when it comes to Ukraine. He's just pointing out what I've pointed out before, which is that Ukraine is not jobs. Ukraine is not the economy. Ukraine is not inflation. And when it comes to the day-to-day things that most Americans are worried about, no offense to Ukraine and no offense to the international community in general, Americans don't care as much, right? They're selfish that way. That's just the voting populace that we have to deal with.
Affecting millions of Americans. They had much better issues. So you had one party letting the other party get away with it, in part because the Democrats also violated laws at the presidential level.
There it is.
So I think the American people have got to see this as an opportunity, a gateway to reverse the process where presidents are above the law. They have been above the law.
That's right.
People around the world have suffered and died because these presidents
justice
have been
only on paper.
Above the law. So we have to broaden it out.
The Democrats have to get Donald Trump on something, right? And I've said this before. They have to slap his wrist just hard enough, because they're calculating that if they slap his wrist hard enough to, basically kick him out of, status quo politics, but not hard enough to set any kind of precedence, that the Republicans will keep the game going and they'll keep the status quo going and still pretend, that, oh, haha, we're not really going to go after each other. That's what they calculate. And they're so fucking wrong. They're so fucking wrong. Ron DeSantis is going to stick a scimitar in their fucking guts and go straight up. He can't wait, man. He's going to throw these neoliberals in jail, and they're going to deserve it. They're all crooks. I'm not going to sit here and defend Clinton for her crimes. They're all crooks. Yeah, at 89, he's damn sharp.
Oh, because what the GOP is going to try to do is focus on yesterday and Alvin Bragg's prosecution, when the criminal lawlessness of
Ralph,
Trump
I wanted to ask you about
Trump's.
Ralph, I wanted to ask you about Trump's attacks on the IRS, and especially since probably.
What are we doing defending the IRS over here? I mean, okay, like they suck. I don't know. I guess we need the IRS. We need a fair and transparent IRS. That's what we need, and we don't have that.
His most consistent historical violations have been in evading his own the taxes, his personal taxes, and those of his companies. Could you talk about that?
Well, yes, David K. Johnson's written about this. He was on your program yesterday.
True, Zio, true.
He's been under regular audit year after year by the IRS. There never seems to be any resolution. It turned out that the IRS was so strapped in its budget, it just had one auditor on this massive commercial sprawling empire of Trump. Using
That's also intentional. The neoliberals and the Republicans are in lockstep when it comes to starving the IRS, so it does not have enough resources to go after the big fish, right? And then the big fish use complexity to mask it, to mask their criminality.
Every possible tax evasion, tax avoidance system imaginable. So he really has gotten away with that. But worse, apropos your question, is he worked with the Republicans year after year in starving the IRS budget so that it couldn't have the skilled auditors to go after the tax evasion of the super rich and the multinational.
You don't need a degree to know these. You just need to, step one. It's step one in my step three process, three-step process, is inform yourself. You just need to pay attention, and you'll see this is a tale as old as time. Once again, right? This is how they do it.
Corporations. In fact, one study out of Berkeley pointed out that over 20% of the top super rich Americans in the United States were evading billions and billions of dollars of tax.
Trillions.
And the IRS was handcuffed. And to this day, the IRS is under pressure by the Republicans going after their budget. Fortunately, they don't control the Senate, so they can't get it through. But clearly, the Trump and the Republican Party were actively and purposely engaged in aiding and abetting tax evasion by the super rich and corporations, all kinds of money that could have gone to good works in our country.
And we only have a minute to go, Ralph. But if you can talk about how Congress, how the president can hold not only President Trump accountable, but other Republicans, and as you say, this is often bipartisan, Democrats as well, on the critical issues that you care about. And this whole issue that isn't being talked about as much, especially as Republicans try to frame what's happening here in New York as the DA saying he won't go after misdemeanor crimes as not going after serious crime, but instead using this political target of Trump. In other words, but instead going after corporate crime. If you can talk about how novel this is for people to see issues of corporate crime front and center.
Well, I wish they would use the phrase corporate crime more instead of the antiquated white-collar crime. We're in the corporate crime wave in this country.
Tell 'em, Ralph.
All you got to do is read the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, listen to Democracy Now! And the amount of enforcement budget is minuscule. It's like having 20 police in Manhattan during the crime wave. And so you're right to point out Congress is the focal point here, whether we like it or not. It is the most accessible branch of government. There are 535 men and women. People know their names back home, and they've got to get mobilized because what Congress can do is redress the imbalance of power, rein in empire, rein in the military budget, redirect public budgets to public necessities in this country, and above all, initiate its criminal contempt power. This idea that congressional subpoenas of the White House can be defied with impunity because it takes too long for Congress to work through the federal courts up to the Supreme Court.
They get to ignore that shit.
It's a false idea because the Congress has generic criminal contempt power. They can arrest. They could have arrested Trump when he defied the January 6th subpoena. They could have detained them. That actually occurred in the 1930s. But a lot of members of Congress don't even know that they have the criminal contempt power and do not have to go to force.
Dude, that's Ralph being nice. That's what being nice looks like to Ralph Nader. He's being way too kind. They fucking know. They fucking know.
Years of judicial appeals, etc. So Congress is the hope for the American people. It's the hope to redress this. It's the hope to reorder our priorities. It's the hope to really make sure that nobody is above the law at high political and corporate crime levels. Corporation CEOs are clearly, in many ways, completely above the law. Look at the Boeing criminality. There's been no action against Muhlenberg and the other CEO, the present CEO now of Boeing, they got away with it. And people all over the country know that the big boys get away with it.
That's right.
There's a double standard of
There is.
justice. So people out there, get on top of your senators and representatives. Show them.
Listen carefully. Listen, because he's heard it all. He's heard all the cynics give him all the defeatism, all the excuses why we can't do this and can't do that. He's heard it all. And let me tell you, he's got the 5-second elevator speech, all right? You don't want to pay attention to shit? You're too busy dabbing on the motherfucking gram, whatever the fuck you're doing. Here it is. Here's your fucking 5-second synopsis on what you, the Zoomer, can do to fix this fucking shit. Listen.
People out there, get on top of your senators and representatives. Show them you've got a pulse. You know their numbers. You know their emails. You know how to reach them. Without you, Congress can't act. Without Congress, we don't have a republic. We have an emerging fascist movement in this country, and Trump proved it by his words yesterday at Mar-a-Lago.
Ralph Nader, I want to thank
There
you
you
for
go.
being with us. Longtime consumer advocate, corporate critic, former
That's how the
presidential
OGs
candidate.
do it. That's how the OGs do it. Feeling jealous? Feeling a little inadequate? Where's my Ralph Nader, says the Gen Zers? You should be. You should be. Because where the fuck is AOC? AOC should sound like a carbon clone of Ralph Nader, man. Just start slipping into seatbelt laws and shit. Just start bringing it up out of the blue. Ralph Nader's a template that we should be emulating. Instead, he's put in the motherfucking closet. What? Oh, for decorum with the neoliberals, AOC? What, you might not go to the next fashion industry fucking gala if you wrinkle the wrong fucking feathers? So here we go. We got a double DN. You know we doing it. Double Amy. Sorry to the haters. And look, there's a lot of hate deserved with Democracy Now! With their coverage of Ukraine. But I could not find a single interview like this talking about Clarence Thomas. Okay? Mainstream media is not doing a good job covering the crimes. Amy Goodman, Democracy Now! Has been covering the crimes of Clarence Thomas for as long as I've been watching them. Since my early 20s. They've been talking about this guy who is an absolute, unapologetic, shameless crook. If you know anything about the Supreme Court, you know one thing for sure. Clarence Thomas is bought and sold, and that motherfucker don't care. That motherfucker do not care. He is a rubber stamp. Yeah, well, you know, what a way to go, though. What a way to go. No, what a way to go, dude. He got a little statue of himself, and then all of a sudden, a good chunk of that statue was embedded into his face. What a way to go, man.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is facing renewed calls for his impeachment after a ProPublica investigation revealed he failed to report frequent luxury trips paid for by a billionaire Republican mega-donor named Harlan Crow.
No biggie.
Who serves on the board of
Free speech. Money is free speech. This didn't change his mind. Come on. Really? Are we really to take the people who are making that argument seriously? Is that why are we obliged to do that? Why are we obliged to take individuals who say such inane, stupid fucking things seriously? Did we sign a memo? Did we sign a document that says we have to pretend that corporations are people and they deserve free speech? I don't remember agreeing to that nonsense, that fantasy. Do you? I'm partly Russian, but when that goofball openly called for the genocide of Ukrainians, he got what he deserved. We're not allowed to call for the direct death of individuals in Twitch chat, Evan Yeager, but I understand what you're saying.
The right-wing American Enterprise Institute. The investigation revealed
Click the wrong button.
Said for about 20 years, Thomas secretly accepted luxury vacations from Crow, an apparent violation of a law requiring justices and other federal officials to disclose most gifts. One vacation involved 9 days of island hopping in Indonesia aboard a 162-foot super yacht. Clarence Thomas and his wife, Ginny Thomas, flew to Indonesia on Crow's.
I think it's fair to say that Clarence Thomas does not put the needs of the African American community into his thought process. I think it's fair to say that he leaves Black America out of his consideration process.
Private jet. Thomas also frequently vacationed at Crow's 105-acre resort in the Adirondacks of New York. Hanging on the walls of the...
I lost my PDA at the Adirondacks! I'm sorry, fucking Aqua Teen Hunger Force deep cut. I just had to, every time I hear Adirondacks, I just think of fucking Master Shake losing his PDA. Classic Aqua Teen.
Resort is a painting of Clarence Thomas sitting with 4 other men, including Harlan Crow,
Thank you,
as
Lenny.
well as Leonard Leo of the Federalist Society. Thomas never reported any of the free trips as gifts.
Looks
On
beautiful.
Thursday, New York Congressmember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, quote, "This is beyond party or partisanship. This degree of corruption is shocking, almost cartoonish. Thomas must be impeached," she said. We're joined now by
More of that, AOC. I'm going to give you... I've been shitting on AOC all stream. I've been shitting on her. I'm going to go ahead and give her credit where credit is due. Thank you for saying that. Let's back it up with some actions.
Justin Elliott, who co-authored the ProPublica investigation headlined Clarence Thomas and the Billionaire. Lay out what you found, Justin.
Yeah, well, what we found is that Justice Thomas has this extraordinary and apparently unprecedented relationship with this outside billionaire who is basically subsidizing his life. I mean, we're talking about trips on a private jet that charters for $10,000 to $15,000 per hour. Cruises around the world on the super yacht that you described, regular vacations with this billionaire and his friends, who in some cases are people that have either ideological or potentially financial interests before the court.
Well, explain what the rules are for Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, well, one of the striking things here as we got into this is just how few rules there are, especially compared to other people in the government. I've friends who work in the federal bureaucracy who say they can't even, have somebody buy them lunch. Supreme Court justices have very few rules in terms of accepting gifts. One of the few things the law requires them to do is to simply disclose gifts, most gifts. This was a law that was passed back in the 1970s after Watergate. And Clarence Thomas, by not reporting these private jet trips and some of the other travel, appears to be in just repeat violation of that law, according to the ethics lawyers we spoke to.
So I wanted to read from your...
Zio Duke, that is simply the most disgusting comment you have ever made. Disgusting.
Investigation. Thomas's frequent vacations at Topridge have brought him into contact with corporate executives and political activists. During one trip in 2017, his fellow guests included executives at Verizon, PricewaterhouseCoopers, major Republican donors, one of the leaders of the American Enterprise Institute, a pro-business conservative think tank, according to the records you reviewed. The painting of Thomas at Topridge, and so I want to show this for our TV audience, shows him in conversation, as we said earlier, with Leonard Leo of the Federalist Society. Explain who the other people are and what Topridge is.
Yeah, Topridge is this incredible, essentially private resort in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. It was actually built by Marjorie Merriweather Post, who is the same heiress who built what is now Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago about a century ago, to give you a sense of the kind of lavishness of the property. And this property is now owned by this Dallas real estate billionaire, Harlan Crow, and he regularly hosts Thomas there. And we're not talking about just sort of a lake house. It's a whole campus of buildings. There's a staff of chefs and waiters and that sort of thing. And, it's very difficult to find out who is on these trips with Justice Thomas. We were able to get the names of guests on one or two occasions. And even though Harlan Crow, told us...
Any honest, objective assessment of this behavior would call it clear-cut corruption. Only in America, where the gaslighters have done such a good job of, changing the meaning of words like literally Orwellian, Orwellian style, changing the definition of certain words, have they been able to get away with this? This is as clear cut and, like AOC said, cartoonish, not almost cartoonish. This is literally the only thing he's missing is a fucking sack of money with a $sign on it. Okay. And that's almost literally, that's what they say is the only thing that can be defined as bribery and corruption. Is if, someone takes a cartoonish sack of money with a $sign on it. As long as you're not doing that.
In a statement that he and his friends are not trying to influence Justice Thomas. The people, for example, in the painting you describe, are.
And what is the sculpture behind them?
Yeah, it's a sculpture.
I was going to point that out too. How wildly ironic that they have this Indian sculpture behind these conquerors, these oligarchs, these people who would eminent domain anybody at will. And they're they got this sculpture behind them meant to honor the conquered American Indian, Native American Indians. It is dripping with irony.
Of a Native American man sort of with his hands outstretched. We're not really sure why it's there, what it's supposed to mean. I actually spoke to the painter who created the piece, and he said that in real life that sculpture is actually 2 or 3 times bigger, and he shrunk it in the painting for scale. But we don't really know why it's there,
this is a painting?
Why they made the choice to pose in front of it. But all of the men in the painting, besides Harlan Crow.
This is a fucking painting? What? This guy agreed to be painted like this? This looks like a photograph. This isn't a fucking painting. What?
Or
is this a photograph of them sitting while they were getting painted by an artist?
Conservative lawyers, people are active in one way or another in the conservative legal movement.
Of course, Leonard Leo, key to the choosing of conservative justices, especially under Trump.
Yeah,
bizarre.
Leonard Leo
This is
has
bizarre.
been very involved in creating the current Supreme Court supermajority, and Harlan Crow has donated to Leonard Leo's groups, and this is a guy who now has a war chest of I think over $1 billion, and again when you look at that painting,
Zio Duke, pretty fucking brazen. I would say he knows he's untouchable. He knows it. The neoliberals are too fucking weak.
It raises a lot of questions about Harlan Crow's statement that this is all about sort of friendship and just socializing.
So tell us more about who Harlan Crow, the billionaire GOP super donor, is.
Hey, Americans in the chat, you're getting bored? Let me tell you something. This is one of the most important stories that's not being talked about right now. You better check yourself if you're getting bored and you want to check out and leave. This is one of the most important, because I can feel it. I can feel people sleeping, going to bed. This is one of the most important stories in America right now.
Can you tell us more about Harlan Crow? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Justin? All right. While he's fixing his IFB, Justin Elliott writes in the piece that Clarence Thomas has presented himself as a, quote, every man with modest tastes. We're going to turn to a clip right now of Justice Thomas speaking in the documentary Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words.
Total pro.
I don't have any problem with going to Europe, but I prefer the United States. And I prefer seeing the regular parts of the United States. I prefer going across the rural areas. I prefer the RV parks. I prefer the Walmart parking lots to the beaches and things like that.
Rich people call this slumming it. They find it quaint and interesting when rich people hang out in poor spaces.
There's something normal to me about it. I come from regular stock, and I prefer that. I prefer being around that.
That's Clarence Thomas. Your response to that, Justin Elliott, and if you can tell us more about the man he spends a lot of time with, even if he extols Walmart parking lots, and that is Harlan Crow.
Yeah, well, a couple thoughts. I mean, one is irony is the documentary you just showed, which was made by friends of Justice Thomas. It was actually financed in part by with hundreds of thousands of dollars from none other than Harlan Crow. And
now you see the violence inherent in the system. Now you see the violence inherent in the system. I had to do it. I literally had to do it. It's a reflex.
A deliberate effort over the years by Clarence Thomas and his supporters to present him as a kind of everyman, a regular guy who likes driving around in his RV, and you know, he absolutely does drive around in his RV around the country, but you know, they've never mentioned
a bunch of people put a bunch of money in their pockets,
is flying
did a
around
5-minute
on
iMovie video,
and going around on yachts, hanging out at resorts, you know, essentially private sort of boutique luxury hotels, hosted by this billionaire. That has somehow never come up in all these interviews he's given about his RVs. So it's you know, starkly different than the reality. With respect to Harlan Crow, I mean, he's you know, he was actually born into money. He was the heir to a major Dallas real estate fortune. He was the son who took over the family business. So he has wide-ranging business interests, particularly in real estate. But I think more relevant for this story, he's also been involved for you know, over 20 years now in conservative legal politics, giving to groups like the Federalist Society and others. As you mentioned earlier, he's a longtime board member of the American Enterprise Institute, the think tank, which of course is active on a lot of issues, but including conservative legal advocacy and you know, advocating for various things related to the Supreme Court. So he's very deep in the kind of political world and specifically the world of conservative legal politics.
And says that the greatest threat is Marxism. Is that right, Justin?
Yeah, and he didn't agree to an interview with us, but he gave an interview recently in which he said his greatest fear is Marxism.
Well, we're going to leave it there as you write.
Yeah, fucking Marxism. Boy, I wish. Boy, I wish. Marxism. Well, folks, it's everybody's favorite segment. The mass shooting update. Let's see how many people died today. There's been 170 U.S. mass shootings in 2023. 5,305 mass shootings since 2013. And exactly one whole day since the last mass shooting. Congratulations, we've gotten 1 day apiece. That's what good guys with guns do for you. That 1 day. You can thank them. Thank you, good guy with gun. Over there in New Orleans, L.A., 0 dead, 4 injured. Looks like we got a bad aim, Andy. Juvenile victims, young girl and 11-year-old boy among the wounded. Boy was critically wounded. Gunman unknown. I'm sure there was a stand your ground reason to maim children with a gun. Isle of Palms, South Carolina? 0 dead and 6 injured. Once again, we got to get some better aim. Maybe the Republicans can fund something that will force people to get better aim. Juvenile victims, 5 of 6 victims were apparently high school students. Hey-oh, I'm sure those guns were legal. Gunman Sean A. Goods Martin, 18, and unidentified juvenile. I'm sure it was a legitimate reason, too. Over there in Park Forest, Illinois, 1 dead, 3 injured, gunman unknown. Philadelphia, PA, 0 dead, 4 injured. Not too many dead, only 3 dead? Those good guys with guns. Gunman unknown about that one. Over there in Lakewood, Colorado, 2 dead and 2 injured. Preliminary, unclear if there's a 4th person shot. Gunman unknown. And there you go, folks. That's your mass shooting update, brought to you by Garbage Fuel, the #1 drink mix company in the world, here to remind you that this will never change unless we try to change it. That's Garbage Fuel, the #1 drink mix company in the world, made from 100% garbage juice. All right, folks, that's my mass shooting update, and that's the end of our U.S. coverage. And I need to fix my webcam because there's a delay. Perfect timing. Thank you very much, YouTube. This is a long one, 2 hours, but lots of U.S. news. Up next is our good news.